Hi there! Thanks so much for showing up for your learning. In this video I'm going to share how I would hunt for square triangle numbers, and then I'm going to find a few and you can go ahead and find the 5-digit one that we're missing. Okay? So, and then you'll be able to do this type of thing on a math contest, which is very cool. Most people can't do this. Okay, so let's review. Square numbers are numbers like x squared. And they're not actually that bad to list. We have 0 squared is 0, 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4, and so on. I'm not going to spend more time on that. We're going to come back to that in a second. What about triangle numbers? They're numbers like 1 plus 2 equals 3, or 1 plus 2 plus 3 equals 6, blah blah blah. But there's even 0. 0 is one of the triangle numbers. 0 equals 0. That's none of them added together. I would think of that as the 0th triangle number, and 1 is the first triangle number, 3 is the second, 6 is the third, and so on. In fact, you can build a number. Okay, so you can build a formula for the nth triangle number. Okay, if 1 plus 2 plus 3 plus 4 plus n minus 1 plus n, well, you can add 1 and n. Okay, add those together, so that's n plus 1. Okay, and then we're going to go ahead and we're going to find yet another n plus 1 here. n minus 1 plus 2 is plus another n plus 1. Okay, and we're going to go dot dot dot. How many of these are we going to have? Well, 3 is going to go with n minus 2, 4 is going to go with n minus 3, and so on. So we have this many divided by 2. So we can write the nth triangle number as n plus 1, and we have n divided by 2 number of pairs of that. Okay, so there we go. Now, what we're looking for, again, is some number that has this form. Okay, x squared equals n times n plus 1 all divided by 2. Okay? Now, let's see what we can do with this. Alright? What we have here and here are 2 consecutive integers. I don't know what n is, but I do know that whatever n is, n plus 1 is the next integer. Okay, so if n is 8, n plus 1 is 9, and that's pretty easy to see. Okay, and then we're going to be dividing one of those by 2. Alright, now, if we have 2 consecutive integers, one is always even. One of them is always even. And one is always odd. Now, if I have another thing about 2 consecutive integers, and this is true for all 2 consecutive integers, if I look at something like 6 and 7, they're coprime. They never share factors. 15 and 16 don't share no factors. 21 and 22, of course, they're always coprime. They never share factors. Okay, so that's another thing that we want to think about here. All right? For how we're going to search. Next, one's always even, they're always coprime, they never share factors, and when I multiply them together I get a square. Okay? So that must mean that that square has like these 2 factors, okay? One of these is even, so let's say n is even, then n we would divide it by 2, and then we would multiply that by n plus 1, that's if n is even. Then n plus 1 is odd. And if these are a square, then both of the factors must be squares, because these factors are coprime. It's not like we can have 8 times 36 and still get a square. That's just, sorry, 8 times 32 and get a square. That would be a square. Okay, we're not having that though. So, or 8 times 18, for example, that would be a better example. Is 144 is a square, where neither of them is. But it's because they share factors, 8 and 18. Because these are coprime, each one is a square. That's a square and that's a square. Okay, if n is odd, then we'd have n times n plus 1 divided by 2, and that would be a square, and that would be a square. Okay, if this is x squared. All right, so now let's see how we use this to search. Okay, so we already know that we have these like triangle numbers, and if I check, let's say I'm looking for, I'm just going to check so I know that like that's a square or that's a square and they're odd. So let's check the odd squares. So the first odd square that we might have is 1. That's an odd square. And then I can see that in this case, both the integer before, which is 0, and the integer after, which is 2, half of those, okay, whichever it is, if I'm going down or I'm going up, half of those are squares. So that is to say, if I have like this one, 1 multiplied by 2 on 2, then that's equal to 1, and that's both a square number and a triangle number, because it satisfies this formula of n times n plus 1 on 2, okay, and it also, 1 we know is a square. Okay, we built it that way. Or I could have 1 and I could have 0 divided by 2, okay? And that would also give me 0, which is both a triangle and a square. In fact, so these are the first two numbers that are both squares and triangles, and we think of them as the trivial ones. All right? Now let's check the other odd squares. So after 1, our next odd square is 9. So let's look at that. If I look at 9, and I look at the number before, if I did multiply by 8 divided by 2, haha, 8 divided by 2 is a square. So this one is both, this is 4 times 9, this is a square and a triangle number. Happens to be 36, which is equal to 1 plus 2 plus 3 dot 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 plus 8, because there's n. It's the nth one. Okay, and there's n plus 1. Okay, and we know 36 is also equal to 6 squared. Okay, so that's how we would find the first one if we didn't just have that memorized. I have that memorized. I know 36 is this special number. It's both a triangle and a square. It's very special. Now, let's say we want to find the next one that has this property. We're going to find it's a lot bigger than 36. So I'll show you how I would look. Let's look at the next square. So we looked at 3 squared. Let's look at 5 squared. Okay, so 5 squared is 25. That's how I find the next odd square. I take the next odd integer and square it. So I look at 25, and then I see, neither 24 divided by 2, which is 12, that's not a square, and 26 divided by 2, that's 13, that's not a square. So this one won't work. 7 squared, okay, that's 49, and it doesn't look good, does it? I mean, we've got our next number is like 48, which is 1 less than 49. 48 divided by 2 is 24. That's not a square. But if I go bigger, 50 divided by 2, oh wait! That is a square. Oh, cool. So, then I test it, okay? 49 multiplied by 50 divided by 2, there's my n. There's my n plus 1. So this I believe to be the 49th triangle number is equal to, just a quick bit of math here, 1, 2, 2, 5. Okay, now 1, 2, 2, 5 is a square. Let's take its square root. It's going to be, I think that's got to be 35 squared, right? 30 and 5 and 30 and 5. So we know 1, 2, 2, 5 is this triangle number. It's the 49th. But here this gives us 900, 150, 150, and 25. So this indeed equals 1, 2, 2, 5. It's both a square and a triangle. So what I need you to do is keep checking. odd squares for me. And then look one bigger and one smaller and see if either of those two even numbers that are adjacent to the odd square, see if half of them, half of 50 is 25, is a square. Okay, see if half of them is a square, and if it is, then you've found a square triangle number. And those are exceptionally rare. Okay, we saw that this is the list of square triangle numbers so far. 1, 0, 1, 36, oh, pretty big jump. 1, 2, 2, 5, huge jump. You're going to find the next jump is the 5-digit integer that you're looking for. Good luck, happy hunting, bye for now, and thanks so much for showing up for your learning.